Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today, I want to provide you with an experimental deck list that I have been working on, as some people have told me they don't quite know where to start after I released my previous video. I will also try to provide you with some theory and further deck building ideas and considerations that might help you with adjusting this or any list to your taste or playstyle. If you have any input you want to provide, feel free to do so in the comments and I will try to respond to the best of my ability. Should you find any of this useful, please consider liking the video or subscribing, so that I know if there is more interest in in-depth videos like these, be it for long-form, in-depth videos on combo guides or whatever. Now, without further ado, let's get started with the list. We will be looking at the Sunavalon Engine of the deck first. I'm playing with 6 copies of Loci, the 1 twin, and 2 Sowing. There are already a few choices here that could be contentious or worth iterating on, so let's look at how we could potentially change these ratios. The first idea that I want to look at is to just play 2 Sunseed Genius Loci. This idea may sound somewhat foreign at first, since the deck is essentially synonymous with normal summoning this card to make a huge board, but there are actually a few reasons as to why one might cut one from the list. First of all, Loci is the suboptimal normal summon going second. While it threatens a powerful play, it is very easily removed by the spot removal of most decks in the format. A normal summon like Rosalina produces 2 bodies, making this a bit more difficult. Secondly, if we are playing a smaller list, we may already have too many normal summons, especially if we are playing in an Aroma heavy build. In both cases, one might want to cut one of the normal summons. This list plays 50 cards, give or take, so this is not an issue for me and I'm playing it at 3. But if you're looking to play in the realm of 40 to 45 cards, you might find yourself breaking on too many normals otherwise. As for why cutting Loci instead of Rosa makes sense, consider that Rise is at 1. Meaning, duplicates don't actually accomplish anything. Even if you open both die and another Loci normal summon, the Loci doesn't add more than any normal summonable planet would have and is essentially dead in hand. Compare this to Rosalina, which would on its own be a second push through whatever hand trap or interrupt our opponent may throw out at the Sunavalon line. Cutting the normal summon of Loci while keeping the number of die the same means that on average, if we open a copy of Loci, we are more likely to have opened one of the stronger copies in die, which should lead to better hands going second on average as well. Another consideration for the Sunavalon Engine is how many copies of Sowing we play. It seems somewhat natural that we would only play 1 because it is the search target for the Rise and Trices at 1. However, another thing to consider is that even if we do not open access to Loci, this card would turn any summonable plant monster into 3 plant monsters and thus full combo. It can also just function as an extender that specials a plant body from deck. The presence of Joel in the format also means that hard drawing Sowing can be nice, especially in conjunction with either Princess or Mudan, so that we can play around Joel or make sure that our first search is conquered. Another point of concern is the rising popularity of negation hand traps like Imperm or Veiler, as our only ways to extend through an Imperm Dryas with one extender are Borea and Sowing to summon Twin and Revive Loci, in the case that we opened normal summon Loci. Seeing how Ghostmourne is also picking up in popularity at the moment, it may even be worth a consideration to play 3 copies of Sowing, which is something I want to test moving forward. In either case, I think the card is too good to be played at 1 unless you are really trying to minimize card count. Next up we will be looking at the Aroma Engine, because our choices here affect how we want to build our Rikka Engine, though more on that later. I'm playing 3 Rosalina as I want to maximize my starters, and 2 Laurel so that Laurel is not a break. If you want further insights on my choices for this engine, I recommend watching my introduction to Rikka Sunavalon Post-PHNI Nightmare, which is the video preceding this one. And for my blend package, I'm just playing the 1 blend and the 1 human. Seriously, if you aren't playing this, you are missing out. I'm still not convinced of Angelica being worth playing, as I haven't really seen it add anything to common planet of play or combos or whatever, but Sunseed just seems smitten with that card, so maybe she will cook up some Angelica goo that will make me consider that card worth playing. For now though, I think it's a brick that I can do without. The next major engine is obviously the Rikka Engine. My build here will probably need a bit of explanation, but I've put quite a lot of thought into the theory surrounding this part of the deck. If you are confused by my choices, rest assured I will try to cover everything in the theory section as best as I can. I am playing just 1 copy of Petal. With human wins in the picture, I'm usually not lacking in follow-up, so I just view this card as a combo piece now that can be decent normal if necessary. I'm obviously playing 3 copies of Princess, because it's a custom card, it's special itself, it plays around hand traps through through boards, and if you're playing less than 3 of this, I've lost your way. I'm on 2 copies of Mudan. I have been experimenting with playing 3 copies in 60 card pile builds, and I liked it there. That said, I have also been toying with the idea of cutting it to 1 in general, but I feel like that just makes the grind game a bit awkward, especially with all of the hand traps going around that may deny you access to Concon on your first Mudan summon. So I'm sticking with 2 for now. I'm playing the 1 Snowdrop as my last recommending monster. I'm not playing Primula, and I will explain why later. Next up are the 2 copies of Concon, 2 copies of Glamour, and the 1 sheet. Okay, so let's get into the explanation. First, let me explain in more detail why I'm only running 1 Petal. In most patterns of play, Humid will still be on the field and I will have fetched a copy of Rosalina to the opponent's end phase. Usually, any additional copies of Loci that I still have in the deck are dead at this point, so I do not need Petal as a Glamour tribute target to grab either, and just the Humid heal to trigger another Jasmine is usually enough to get me anywhere that I want in the first place for follow-up. Instead, I will also often use Glamour to fetch me Snowdrop and Borea on the correct back, as I commonly default to the super poly resistant lines shown in the previous video. This means I still have these resources left in deck to search out, and I do not need to search Princess and Primula, so I decided to cut Primula entirely. This naturally leads to the question, why play 2 Glamour? It used to be pretty much a given that instead of 2 copies we play 3, so let us consider the effects of playing for a copy for this list. First, it obviously adds consistency. Plainly put, it is a Rikka Rota. There's really no confusion about why this would be useful, but another major point is that this card is a tribute outlet to be used in conjunction with Concon to break boards, and we simply do not play enough Rikka monsters to have enough targets for this many Glamour in the grind, thus the 3rd copy is often superfluous. Another minor concern is that the card is obviously rough in control. You never want your first search to be Glamour, and if people drolled you on a previous search, this card is just plain dead in hand. But the reason, ultimately, that I cut the 3rd copy is that I wanted to minimize my engine in order to fit more on an engine, and this seemed to be one of the most sane places to start cutting. This, in turn, directly leads to the second consideration. Why not just play 1 copy of Glamour? It would just function as a searchable board breaker or combo piece where necessary, and we could minimize the engine further. While this sounds good in theory, in practice the loss of consistency is really the smallest issue this produces. Oftentimes the hard-drawn Glamour made it so that one of my searches or effects to set was dead, and in grinding games such as those produced by hand traps, bringing a game to an absolute standstill, I really missed having more copies of this card to keep removing bodies from my opponent's board while plussing in the grind. This is why I think you should play 2 copies, at a minimum. Though, the real elephant in the room is that I'm not playing Primula. The reason for this is actually quite simple. Just look at all of these cards, right? There are already a lot of hard and soft bricks and as engine requirements, and I want to cut whatever bad cards that I can to increase my average starting hand and my average card quality. With the combos that I am playing, Primula does not really come up. And while Glamour into instant Strenna is of course something desirable, I found that the difference of playing or not playing Primula usually just was ending on Teardrop instead of Strenna in some scenarios where I got hand dropped. I've played dozens of games without the card and hardly ever missed it, so if you find yourself breaking too much, this may be something you could consider cutting as well. The last part of the main deck is the Therion Engine. I'm also including Miscellaneous Engine in this part because it's really not all that exciting. I'm playing the full Therion package with 3 Borea since it's the best extender in the deck and I want to be able to play through hand traps. I'm also playing 1 Lone Fire as an engine requirement, and I'm also on 1-for-1 because it's a powerful extender and also an alternative starter, especially now that we have 3 high value targets. This puts the list at an engine count of 35 total. The non-engine is the part that I want to caveat the most. This list is mostly meant for the mid-rating dueling book games that I'm currently playing, and not for YCS level events. I will try to explain why certain cards are good or bad, and then introduce a few build ideas in the theory section, both serious and less so. In either case, instead of copying this part, you may want to listen to the explanations and theory instead, and then draw your own conclusions on what you eventually want to play in your list. First off, I am playing Redraw. This card is fantastic for limiting the board against Fire King, and it clears a rogue. It's much less effective against pure Snake Eyes, and as that deck is rightfully increasing in popularity at the top levels of play, this may move into the side deck in the future. Similarly, the 3 Nibiru aren't actually too great if your opponent plays Optimal, unless you have a lot more hand traps to pair it with. As you will see, that is not the case for this list. But in mid-rated DB, this card essentially always works. Nibiru is obviously great, but unless you're pairing it with more hand traps, you may want to consider other options. Imperm is just fantastic this format. It doesn't activate talents, it's super high value on Snake Eye Ash, and it's okay to draw as your 6th card, as it can also be a board breaker. Not much else to say, definitely play this card, and I'm playing it ad free. Talents are here to punish my opponents for greedy or early use of hand traps. I often find myself looping in Nibiru out of their hand, after which I can continue playing. Going second with steal effect can come in clutch, though I often find myself fishing for Nibiru in my opponent's hands anyway. Next up we have a Thrust package, consisting of 2 Thrust and 1 Change of Heart as secondary target. This may raise some eyebrows, but I will explain it in more detail in the theory section. Lastly, we have Called by the Grave to negate more hand traps and banish some of the higher graveyard threats or unsuspecting Dynamono targets. This is a rare meta where the card is actually okay going second, so I definitely want to play it. This puts the list at a total of 16 non-engine, making over 30% of the deck non-engine. It's fairly likely to open 2 non-engine in 5, and while a slightly higher ratio may be desirable, that would likely require going to a card count of 60, which is viable, to be clear, and what I have been playing for the most part, but I was trying to lower the card count to find certain extenders like Boreal more often in this list. On that note, why am I playing a Thrust package in a meta where every non-engine slot counts? The answer is Nibiru. Plants don't really appreciate it being in the format, and in the event that we do get nibbed, Thrust can fetch 1 for 1 and we can extend from there. It and 1 for 1 are the only cards that can do this on their own, given that there is an applicable discard for 1 for 1. Thrust doubling as an extender instead of existing as just a board breaker means this is one of the decks that can more easily justify running it in the main. The board breaking targets here are Talons and Change of Heart, following a similarly simple idea. Taking control of an opponent's Appaloosa is a game-winning play. It's a card that is otherwise uniquely powerful against the deck because our monsters are too small to beat over it before it has already used all the negates. And taking control of it also insulates against our opponent's interrupts and hand traps for the rest of the turn. The extra deck is probably the least exciting part of the list, but we will go through it either way. I'm playing a Sunavalon package that includes Melias, because I want to go for the super poly lines that end on Jasmine. Other than that, I am on 3 Jasmine, Rosemary and Magnolia for the Aroma package, and Dance Peon and Bangalancer make up the rest of the mandatory plant links. My Xyz package consists of 2 Strenna, Teardrop, and Hyper, and I have filled my flex spot with Thrasher. So why did I not play something else in that flex spot? Let's look at what other options we might have. The obvious and likely correct answer for playing the flex spot is SP Level 9, but the card costs too much money for me personally. Unlike in other decks, its impact is not nearly as big, so it's not mandatory. Other options include Typhon or Mudragon if you want to play Super Poly in the side. So let's move on to that side deck. This part is similar to the non-engine I'm playing and not really meant for higher level events. Again, just don't copy this and instead try to consider your choice of non-engine yourself based on whatever theory you subscribe to. The 3 copies of Ash should probably be in the main, but they are here. You can't just not play it at all in a standard deck like this, just because it covers so much. But against the deck I found myself facing on DB, I did not think that Ash was worth the risk of getting Talon's hand looped, so I moved it on the side. 3 Cosmic because they have normal breakers against Fire King unless we go for the Unicorn Shuffle Bag Island lands, but I haven't seen those really catch on, so I'm sticking to Cosmics. 3 Evenly because it clears a lot of Rogue, and for the rest of the non-engine, I can't take photos of physical cards because I've lent them previously and never bought them. I'm citing a Bistio package consisting of Magnum Hood, 2 Druid's Worm and Baldrick. They hit Voiceless and Brand New pretty strongly while providing a body for Jasmine to tribute off or that can be linked into SP. They also not half bad against the Snake Eyes decks because you can hit IP or Formula Synchron in the graveyard when Flamberge tries to place them in the spell trap zone. I'm also playing DDG as a first target for when I'm going first. As the last card in the side deck, I'm playing Rivalry of Warlords. This is the one floodgate we can actually play well, and it is very strong against almost all of the meta decks running around right now. In some cases you can even side this in going second as it doubles as a board breaker against most strategies, so long as they don't have hard negate. It's also quite hard to remove from most strategies, especially now that most people are more hand traps than board breakers. I've seen some people play Anti-Spell or Summon Limit, but I think those fundamentally conflict with our turn 3 players and are best left in the binder. That concludes the deck profile, but I still want to look at a few other non-engine build options as well. The first and obvious build option is trying to combine Imperm on a host of other hand traps in order to have a generic non-engine lineup that is strong going second and picks up the board going first. This leads into the idea that we could just play Crossout on the side to negate hand traps going first. And while this is strong there, my concern with this strategy lies with going second. In the current meta, it is very likely that your opponent had the same idea and that your hand traps just get negated, you get Talon's hand looped, and it just feels really miserable to go second in that situation. Especially because the decks you are trying to beat commonly follow the same idea and they just do it better. Snake Eye decks get to play more non-engine with a lesser total card count, and frankly this is just an arms race that plans are bound to lose. Considering all that, I would like to introduce a different solution. If we are only playing board breakers, the crossout our opponents are playing will just be dead in hand. And the same goes for any copies of Talons they might play. Additionally, we gain a lot of ways to contest the Ottoman floodgates they side in going first. Breakers also lead to guaranteed outcomes, unlike hand traps that make you gamble on whether your opponent has opened any ascenders. And most importantly, breaker builds make for more interactive gameplay in which you let your opponent build a board, and you break the board and build your own board, and your opponent then tries to do the same, and so on. It's just a much more enjoyable and skill testing way of playing the game. So, what are the drawbacks? There aren't any, quite simply. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, peace.